Most people looking for answers about their mental health end up in one of two places: therapy or medication. And for a lot of people, neither one fully explains what they're experiencing. Not because those things don't have a place, they absolutely do, but because they're working downstream of something most practitioners never look at. I'm Dr. Kenny, a functional medicine practitioner, and in this video, I want to walk you through what the emerging research is starting to show: that your emotional life and your cellular biology are not actually separate conversations. Your mitochondria may be listening to your life in a way that changes how your brain actually functions. And that may completely change the way that we address mental health condition treatment. Most people operate inside this framework in our current paradigm, and it looks like this, where your biology produces your mood, like your brain is a generator and your emotional experience is the output. When the output goes wrong, the solution is either psychological, working with how you think or respond, or pharmaceutical, adjusting brain chemistry. That framework may not necessarily be wrong, but at best it's incomplete in a way that costs people many real results over time. Because the question it doesn't answer well is this: why do so many people do the work in therapy or take the medication and do everything recommended and still feel like their biology isn't cooperating? There may be a layer underneath both of those approaches, a cellular layer that most mental and physical health investigations never truly reach. And without addressing it, some people hit these ceilings with medications and they just switch to another or a new therapist or beyond. Again, nothing against those tools, but there may be a deeper question to ask as well. Your mitochondria are the little energy producing units inside of your cells. They convert oxygen and nutrients into ATP, which is cellular fuel for every operation in our bodies. Think of them as the power grid for how your body runs. Every process from your brain draws from that grid, mood regulation draws from it, stress tolerance, hormone creation, decision-making, everything. It all depends on energy, and those mitochondria are supplying it. Here's what most mental health conversations leave out. Mitochondria are not passive structures. They're not just burning fuel based on available supplies. They're actually reading the environment that they're living in as well. They are signal sensitive in ways that turn out to matter for how your brain and mental health actually function from day to day. So when someone has done the work, whether psychological or pharmaceutical, and still can't find stable ground from a systems perspective, the question becomes, what is the energy system underneath doing then? And what is it being asked to run on from an energy perspective? Think of a thermostat for a moment. The thermostat's job is to read the room, the temperature of the room, the actual lived condition of the space is the input. The heat or the cool that follows is its response. So apply this to mental health. The room's condition is what drives the furnace, or the body's environment is what drives the brain chemistry, not the other way around. The conventional model in mental health has largely assumed the reverse, that biology is the thermostat setting in the room. But a study out of Columbia University began asking a different question. What if the room's condition is also what the biology reads? Researchers tracked the daily emotional states of 91 women over the course of a week and then measured what they called their mitochondrial health index. This is basically a composite score of how well mitochondria are actually functioning in the white blood cells. The more positive the emotional states every day in the 3 days before the blood draw, the higher the mitochondrial health index, interestingly. The more negative it was, the lower the index was. And here's the directional finding nuance. The mitochondrial state did not significantly predict how the participants themselves felt afterward at the same level as the reverse did. So the stronger signal seemed to be coming from emotional experience running toward cellular biology. This was a single observational study, obviously, specifically in a female population. It needs replication, and I want to be honest about that, but the direction of the signal changes the question that you should be asking about perhaps your own pattern. And this, of course, was looking at mitochondrial function inside of immune cells, a very specific place. So we need to look outside of that as well and look inside the brain itself. Another study out of Columbia combined 2 decades of psychosocial data from nearly 450 older adults who had agreed to donate their brains to science. They analyzed the protein breakdown in the prefrontal cortex, or the front part of your brain, that plays a major role in decision-making and emotional regulation. And specifically, they were looking at the energy machinery inside the mitochondria, inside these cells. People who reported greater well-being, stronger social connection, and more positive psychosocial experiences across their lives had a greater abundance of the proteins that run mitochondrial energy production. Those subjects who reported more negative mood and more negative life experiences or adverse events had lower protein content in that same brain area. And obviously this is post-mortem observational data too, but it does tell us about potential associations that are very intriguing. The way I like to think of it is that this tells us that the texture of someone's emotional life, what they experienced across decades, whether they felt connected or purposeful or experienced adverse childhood events, these left a measurable trace in their biology and their brain's energy systems. And by the way, if you want to dig into the studies that I'm referencing in this particular video, I've put together a free research summary that's in the pinned comment and the description below. So check that out if this interests you. I also give my hot takes on it. Now, as we're having this discussion, here's what I want to be careful about. The point isn't necessarily to flip the standard model entirely and say, lived experience is the cause of all mental health concerns. Mitochondrial state is the effect. That leaves us in the same one direction, black and white thinking that we started with, and many people experience in this space. What this research is pointing to actually is more of a loop where you can enter at just about any point, and the loop also runs both ways. You can almost think of it as 2 rivers flowing in the opposite direction as well. The first flows from your lived experiences, the quality of your emotional life, the connection, the life purpose, all that jazz, into your cellular biology responding to it. That river influences how well your mitochondria functions. The second flows back when mitochondria are compromised, for instance, whether by chronic stress, environmental toxins, nutritional deficits, or the drivers that we covered in depth in some of my other videos. That compromised state also affects brain energy directly. And so the brain's capacity for a stable mood, stress tolerance, and adaptive advanced cognition all depend on that energy. Research that's reviewing the connection between mitochondrial dysfunction and neuropsychiatric conditions, including depression, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia, have found disrupted energy production implicated consistently across these diagnoses. And not as a secondary feature, it's as part of the central mechanism that drives the experiences. When the brain's energy supply is compromised, the capacity for emotional regulation and cognitive resilience also shrink. So here's what this looks like in practice. Chronic stress, whether psychological, relational, or physiological, think hidden inflammation, puts mitochondria under pressure. Then compromised mitochondria reduce your available energy for the brain. Less energy means less capacity to regulate mood and manage the same stressors, which means those stressors may hit harder the next time around or more chronically. The loop can reinforce itself in either direction as well, and most mental health frameworks, even good functional medicine approaches, are addressing the output of the loop oftentimes, staying stuck in symptom land, not the loop itself. So what does this mean practically? Since we've established that emotional inputs are also functional or physiological inputs, they are inputs in the same way that a nutrient deficiency is an input, or a viral infection is an input. They're just measured differently. And that doesn't mean that they replace investigating the physical drivers, because those matter, the mold toxicity and the chronic infections, nutrient deficiencies. These are real and they're part of the picture of mental health support. But here's what I see most consistently in more complex cases where mental health concerns are a component. Often when patients first come and see me, they've already done the conventional and the functional work. Maybe even their numbers have improved sometimes, but there's still this plateau that they can't seem to move past. And when I look at the broader terrain or environment, the room that the thermostat is in those cases, the systemic environment either enables or resists deeper recovery. And this is where advanced functional lab testing can come in to start teasing out the underlying drivers, or oftentimes the combination of drivers that keeps the body stuck in this loop rather than repair, recovery, and resilience. So I'm genuinely curious if you've been through many layers of your own investigation, conventional or functional or otherwise. What were you told was maybe driving what you were experiencing? Drop it in the comments. I do read them, and hearing your story sometimes helps other people who are reading along as well if you're open to it. So let's talk about some of the more powerful inputs when it does come to this mitochondria mental health connection. There are 3 inputs in particular that have consistent research for both mitochondria and mental health that fall squarely into this lived experience category. Movement is number 1, not for what it burns and the whole caloric conversation that has come out of movement, but for the signals that it sends across your systems. Consistent physical demand often tells your mitochondria that more output is needed, and that signal drives resilience at that cellular level. There are exceptions in instances like chronic fatigue syndrome and post-exertional malaise, but that's in another video. Number 2 is the quality and range of your emotional life. Research points to the importance of not just positive states, but variety. Different emotional experiences across a day, across a week. What researchers call emodiversity, actually. It's the full spectrum of what we feel. Emotional flatness or one-noteness or chronic stress in particular both appear to work against mitochondrial health, where an authentic range of emotion seems to support it. Kind of that emotional flexibility mirroring metabolic flexibility in ways. Next is periods of metabolic rest. Brief windows of time where your body is not in a constantly fed state, but also not overdoing the fasting. It's very much a Goldilocks principle, because this metabolic flexibility can help to essentially strengthen and activate the little cellular quality control agents that your mitochondria depend on to be recycled and to be more functional. The specific approach matters than any one-size-fits-all fasting approach, so just make sure that you take your own context or talk with a practitioner about the nuances of fed and fasting states for you. And if the loop that we talked about today raises a deeper question for you, specifically, why do some people's cells respond when others don't, even when the inputs are exactly the same? Or what determines one's baseline mitochondrial resilience? And that's exactly what this next video explores here. Because once you see what shapes the cellular responsiveness in this resilience conversation, whether mental health or fatigue, the investigation opens to an entirely new level. Check it out. I'm Dr. Kenny, Root Cause Health Detective. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.